In a quiet village, two children play together until one accidentally hits the other, sparking an argument. As they quarrel, they talk about their dreams of becoming wizards. At that moment, Elder Rabus passes by with a few villagers and warmly praises the children for being so energetic in the morning. Seeing him, the children eagerly ask how they can become mages. However, Rabus gently but firmly explains the harsh reality. They cannot become mages. Mages are considered the pinnacle of humanity, ruling from the highest ranks of society. They are divided into two groups, nobles and knights, and ordinary people can never become mages, no matter how much they wish to. Afterward, a black-haired villager approaches Rabus to discuss a troubling matter. Rabus confirms that a massive leopard-like monster, as large as a house and covered in pitch-black shadows, was seen near the village entrance the previous night. Despite the frightening news, Rabus reassures everyone that the village chief has gone to the city to request the help of a mage, who will surely deal with the threat. Relieved, the villager instructs his child not to go outside for the time being, as it is too dangerous. Rabus also urges all villagers to remain cautious, emphasizing that defeating such a creature is impossible for ordinary humans. The villager then asks whether everyone, including the shepherd Turan on Hizril Hill, has been informed. The scene shifts to Turan, who feels bored as he watches the same scenery day after day. He even worries that he might forget how to speak at this rate. Elder Rabus soon arrives and scolds him for appearing lazy before sunset. Turan, clearly displeased with Rabus, responds sharply. Rabus then questions whether Turan is still upset about a past incident. Turan immediately brings it up, accusing Rabus of once attempting to quietly turn his sheep into shared village property. Unable to respond, Rabus remains silent, and Turan makes it clear that he has no intention of forgiving or sharing what he inherited from his mother. Turan impatiently tells Rabus to get to the point. Though irritated, Rabus informs him about the monster sighting reported by villagers. Turan listens while casually patting his sheep, remarking that it sounds serious, though his tone suggests otherwise. Rabus, unconvinced by Turan's reaction, reminds him that he could be in danger. He also mentions that the village chief has gone to request a mage and advises Turan to stay safe until help arrives. Rabus insists that he came out of concern, but Turan refuses to acknowledge it and dismisses him once again. With no choice, Rabus leaves and heads toward the forest. Monsters are creatures that possess mysterious powers and magic. Just as humans have mages, beasts have monsters. Turan finds himself curious and even excited at the thought of seeing a mage in person, though he suspects that a mage sent to a rural village may not be particularly impressive. Still, he wants to witness their strength firsthand. As he reflects on this, Turan suddenly hears a loud sound coming from the forest. He follows it as the sun begins to set and eventually discovers the body of Elder Rabus. Despite warning others to be careful, Rabus had entered the forest himself. Observing the wounds, Turan quickly concludes that the leopard-like monster is responsible. Moments later, the creature appears before him. Meanwhile, the child from earlier asks his father whether it is true that even adults cannot defeat such monsters. The father confirms this, explaining that the creatures are incredibly powerful and that anyone who confronts them recklessly would likely lose their life. This worries the child, who fears for the safety of the village. However, his father reassures him that the village chief will return with a mage capable of defeating the monster. To them, mages are extraordinary individuals born with magical abilities, capable of overcoming such threats with ease. Back in the forest, Turan narrowly avoids an attack from the monster. In response, he speaks the word die, causing the creature to hesitate for a moment, though it remains unaffected. When the monster charges again, he tries another command, telling it to stop, but this also fails. Forced to rely on other means, Turan dodges the attack and retrieves a sling from his clothing. Focusing intently, he begins to command the stone in his sling, strengthening it and increasing its speed. He then launches it toward the monster while directing it to strike it down. The stone strikes true, injuring the creature, though it narrowly avoids a fatal blow. However, this was part of Turan's plan. Using the brief opening, he creates a blind spot, leaps from above, and aims directly for the monster's head. With a decisive strike, he defeats it, despite this being his first time using such magic against a monster. As he reflects on the situation, he complains that the villagers have, once again, left him with all the work. Turan is, in fact, a mage, a truth he discovered about 8 years ago when he was only 10 years old. At that time, he was at home demonstrating his abilities by moving objects with his power in front of his mother. Instead of sharing his excitement, his mother appeared deeply worried. Turan happily told her that he could also create fire and control the wind, but her concern quickly turned into fear, and she sternly told him to stop immediately. She then approached him gently and asked a serious question, whether he wanted to continue living with her for a long time. When Turan answered yes, she made him promise that he would never use his powers again, especially not in front of others. Still a curious child, Turan asked why he had to hide such an extraordinary ability. In response, his mother reminded him of the story of nobles and knights. Although both are mages, they are fundamentally different. Nobles are said to be descendants of divine beings known as the Freyans, who descended to save humanity in ancient times. Knights, on the other hand, are descendants of nobles whose bloodlines have mixed with ordinary humans over generations. Because Turan remembered this story, his mother revealed the truth. He had inherited his powers from his father, who was a knight. Beyond the safety of their village, many nobles treat knights as little more than servants. Fearing for his safety, she made him promise that he would never let anyone discover that he is a mage. 8 years have passed since that promise, and Turan has honored it without fail. He has no intention of breaking it, nor does he have any desire to reveal his identity or leave the mountain. However, trouble soon finds him. A group of young villagers gathers outside his home, accusing him of killing Elder Rabus. Turan remains calm and points out why they might want to blame him. The oldest man in the village died alone, while the younger men avoided confronting the monster out of fear. To protect themselves from guilt or suspicion, they have chosen to place the blame on him. This explanation only angers one of the young men, who lashes out and throws a punch. Turan calmly avoids the attack and responds in kind. Magic, for him, is a subtle tool. When he strongly wills something to happen, it does, though it consumes his energy. Even now, he uses it quietly, whispering just enough for his abilities to activate as he defends himself. He carefully controls his strength, making sure to subdue the attackers without causing serious harm. Turan easily overpowers the group, demonstrating the skill he has quietly developed over the past 8 years while keeping his true nature hidden. Once the confrontation ends, he turns his attention to a group of young women who had gathered nearby, drawn by the commotion. Remaining composed, he simply tells them to take the injured men and return home. Afterward, Turan returns to his house, reflecting on how the villagers might use the recent incident as an excuse to cheat him during future trades. He dismisses the thought, believing he can simply stand his ground until he receives a fair deal. Expecting that no one will bother him again anytime soon, he is irritated when someone suddenly knocks on his door. Annoyed, he swings the door open and demands to know what they want. To his surprise, it is not the villagers, but a traveler. The traveler immediately apologizes for arriving at an inconvenient time. Turan, realizing his mistake, apologizes in return and continues the conversation more calmly. He quietly wonders whether he is speaking properly, as his mother once taught him, since it has been a long time since he spoke politely to anyone in the village. Noticing that the traveler carries a sword and has come to such a quiet and remote place, Turan invites him inside, assuming he may be looking for a place to stay. Once inside, Turan prepares as much food as he can and sets it on the table. The traveler remarks that the meal feels like a feast. During their conversation, he is surprised to learn that Turan has never left the village and has spent his entire life as a shepherd. Observing Turan's manners, the traveler compliments both him and his upbringing. In response, Turan shares that his mother was well-educated and had taught him these manners, but she passed away a few years earlier due to illness. The traveler expresses his condolences and thanks him again for the meal. Curious, Turan asks why the traveler has come to the village. The traveler reveals that he has been asked to deal with the leopard-like monster. It becomes clear that he is the very mage Elder Rabus had mentioned. The traveler then grows thoughtful and asks Turan a question. He explains that he can sense the presence of a monster nearby, yet he does not see one. What troubles him more is that Turan is aware of both the monster and the village elder's fate, yet remains calm instead of trying to flee. Given that someone in Turan's position would likely be in danger, the traveler directly asks who Turan really is. The scene shifts back to the past, when Turan once questioned his mother about why he had to hide his identity as a mage. She explained that many nobles treat knights harshly and without respect. Although some may show kindness, they can just as easily exploit or abandon them when it suits their interests. She feared that Turan would be forced into such a life if his abilities were discovered. For that reason, she urged him to keep his powers hidden at all costs. She also warned him to be especially cautious around other mages. If they were to discover his abilities, they might take him away from her and force him into a life where he would have no control over his own fate. Not only that, she also told him that if he wants to avoid being found out as a mage, then he would have to face off other mages as well. Turan does not respond to the mage's question, prompting the mage to laugh and admit that he was only joking. Relieved, Turan apologizes and explains that he does not have a good sense of humor. The mage stands up and apologizes as well, realizing that he may have made Turan uncomfortable. Acknowledging that he went too far, he extends his hand for a handshake and introduces himself as Kjorn, a wanderer. Turan accepts the gesture and introduces himself in return as a shepherd, aged 18. Turan is surprised when Kjorn reveals that he is 75 years old, as he does not appear nearly that old due to the slow, aging nature of mages. Kjorn explains that after serving the Erebion family for the past 60 years, he chose to leave and become a wanderer, traveling from place to place without settling down. As they continue their conversation, Turan finds himself enjoying the exchange more than he expected. They talk throughout the night, and by the time the sun begins to rise, Kjorn prepares to leave. Before departing, he places an Erebion silver coin on the table to cover the cost of the meal. Turan gratefully accepts the payment and bids him farewell, but Kjorn playfully asks him not to be so formal, suggesting that he may return again and rely on Turan's hospitality in the future. The next morning, Turan uses his magic to gather the sheep and begins feeding them. As he works, he reflects on how pleasant it was to have such a genuine conversation with another mage. More than any adult he has met before, Kjorn seemed to be a kind and honorable person. This realization challenges Turan's long-held belief that knights are nothing more than emotionless servants to arrogant nobles. However, his thoughts soon shift to how he should inform Kjorn that there are no longer any monsters on the hill. Meanwhile, Kjorn finds it strange that he can see traces of battle but cannot sense the presence of a monster. He wonders who could have defeated it, or whether the village chief might have asked another mage for help. Although he feels relieved that the villagers are safe, his relief quickly fades when he suddenly senses a powerful presence. The monster has returned in a wraith-like state. As he dodges its sudden attack, Kjorn grows concerned. When a monster is killed, if its mana is not properly absorbed or dispersed, it can transform into a wraith. This confirms that the creature had indeed been defeated by a mage, though Kjorn cannot determine whether this outcome was intentional. Regardless, his immediate priority is to eliminate the threat. He gathers his mana and forms an arrow to strike the monster, but his magic is instantly nullified, revealing that the creature's power far exceeds his own. In the next instant, the monster vanishes and reappears from Kjorn's shadow, launching another attack. Kjorn narrowly avoids it, now fully aware that he cannot defeat this enemy alone. At the very least, it would require a mage of noble rank to stand a chance. Although he did not expect to encounter such a powerful creature in a remote village, Kjorn prepares himself for a final stand. Determined not to fall without resistance, he concentrates all his mana into his hand and moves to strike the monster as it lunges toward him. Just as both are about to clash, Turan arrives and intervenes, attacking the monster and surprising Kjorn with the revelation that Turan is also a mage. Kjorn asks why Turan kept this a secret, but receives no answer. Instead, he shifts his question and asks why Turan chose to help him. The memory of their conversation the previous night comes to mind. When Kjorn had returned after gathering food, Turan had asked why he would go out of his way to help villagers who could offer little in return. Kjorn had laughed and explained that he saw them as vulnerable people living in a remote place without even basic protection. Turan had replied that their situation was not Kjorn's responsibility, but Kjorn had responded that mages inherit power akin to that of a higher force, and with that power comes a sense of duty. In his view, they should take pride in protecting those who cannot defend themselves. He had also acknowledged that not all mages share this belief, but it is the principle he chooses to follow. That answer had left a strong impression on Turan. Now, in the present, Turan simply responds that everyone has their own way of living. At that moment, the monster attacks again, but both of them manage to evade it. After creating some distance, Kjorn admits that they cannot handle this creature unless they possess the strength of a noble rank mage. He urges Turan to inform the village chief and help evacuate the villagers while he holds the monster back, even though he knows he cannot last long. Turan refuses to retreat. He calmly states that all he needs to do is land a decisive blow, and the monster will fall. Kjorn is startled, realizing that Turan has not yet revealed his full strength. In that moment, the seasoned knight understands that what he is witnessing is not merely a chance encounter in a remote village, nor the reckless determination of a young mage in hiding. Instead, it may be the beginning of someone destined to change the world. As for Turan, he has long been curious about the limits of his power, and he decides that this is the moment to test them without holding anything back. Despite that, Kjorn is not willing to let Turan fight such a tough opponent alone. He decides to join him, but in the very next moment, the monster is about to attack Kjorn. At the perfect time, Turan saves him. Kjorn then realizes that he would only get in Turan's way, as he could not even react to the monster's attack. He stops using his magic and decides that the best thing he can do is help bring out Turan's talent. Turan keeps attacking the monster, but nothing works. Seeing this, Kjorn advises him to use fire or lightning, because the wraith cannot be defeated with physical attacks. Turan strikes at the monster with fire spell, but it still does not work, and the monster continues attacking. At this point, Kjorn becomes more certain that Turan does not even know the most basic knowledge of a mage. This makes Kjorn suspect that Turan may have killed the monster earlier and left it to become a wraith, since Turan had never absorbed mana before. Thinking this through, Kjorn tells Turan to create fire first and then shoot it properly. Kjorn is already surprised by Turan's strength, but he is even more shocked when Turan controls the fire with ease, something many mages need special training to do. This attack finally slows the monster down. Since it is still not defeated, Kjorn tells Turan to stay focused and keep pouring mana into the fire so it does not go out. Turan follows his instructions, and together they finally defeat the powerful wraith, a creature that would normally require at least noble class strength to handle. Turan thinks it is finally over, but Kjorn quickly tells him to absorb the monster's mana, or the wraith may return. Since Turan does not know how, Kjorn tells him to imagine pulling something into himself. With just this simple instruction, Turan successfully absorbs the mana. Even after seeing it himself, Kjorn cannot believe that this was Turan's first time absorbing mana. Normally, after a person awakens, their mana grows slowly over time, and the best way to increase it is by defeating monsters or mages and absorbing their mana. Yet this was Turan's first time, and he is already able to handle magic at such a high level. This suggests that he has natural talent. From this, Kjorn starts to believe that Turan must be a noble. Because of that, he switches to a more formal tone and asks Turan which house he belongs to. They return to Turan's home, where Turan treats Kjorn's injuries. Even though Kjorn continues to speak formally, Turan insists that he is not someone important. He says he is just a shepherd who does not even know who his father is, and asks Kjorn to stop. Kjorn agrees, but still cannot help asking why Turan lives as a shepherd when it clearly does not suit him. Turan explains that it was his late mother's wish. She feared that nobles might use him and then abandon him whenever they wanted. Hearing this, Kjorn praises Turan's mother for being wise. This surprises Turan, as he expected Kjorn to call it overprotective. However, Kjorn sees it differently. Mages hold great power, and great power often leads to conflict. To explain this, Kjorn shares his own past. He talks about a war that happened over 20 years ago between two great noble houses, the House of Arbian, which he served, and the House of Zahar. Many people died in that war. Out of 3,000 Arbian knights, more than 900 were killed. Among the dead were Kyorn's close friend, his teacher, and even his wife and son. They were all killed by the House of Zahar, and Kyorn was the only one who survived. Because of this, Kyorn believes Turan's mother was right to some extent. However, he also believes she was wrong about Turan's potential. Kyorn explains that even though he himself could not defeat the Wraith, he is still a skilled knight, while Turan defeated it with ease. This means Turan's potential is not just that of a knight, but at the level of a noble, possibly even among the higher ranks. Turan then wonders if his mother may have been wrong about him being the son of a knight. Kyorn replies that it is possible for a child with noble-level ability to be born among knights. With this in mind, Kyorn advises Turan to leave the mountains and explore the world. He believes that the world needs more strong and kind nobles and knights. Kyorn explains that humans have not fully taken control of the world. Long ago, other races were pushed aside, but they are still waiting for a chance to return. At the same time, noble houses continue to fight among themselves. Because of this, the world is in need of people like Turan. Kyorn also senses that Turan is not truly satisfied living as a shepherd. After listening carefully, Turan asks what he can gain by leaving the mountains. Kyorn answers that it depends on what he desires. He could gain wealth, fame, authority, family, or friendship, things that are difficult to achieve in isolation. He could also choose to live as a wanderer, like Kyorn, and defeat monsters that threaten people, or become an explorer who searches unknown lands. In the end, it is all up to Turan's choice. If he wishes, he can even pursue great power. Hearing all this, Turan begins to feel curious about the outside world and agrees with Kyorn. Kyorn promises to support whatever path Turan chooses. During their conversation, Kyorn asks about Turan's bloodline ability. Since Turan does not understand what that means, Kyorn explains that it is a trait inherited from noble ancestors, known as the Frans. This is what separates nobles from knights. He then asks Turan if there is any spell he can use easily, or any special ability that does not require magic. Turan thinks for a moment, and says that his strength likely comes from having mana, which also improves physical ability. Aside from that, he only has a strong sense of smell and is good at throwing stones. Kyorn notes that the House of Arbian is known for skill in throwing stones, but that trait alone is too common to identify a bloodline ability. He needs more information. After thinking it through, Kyorn grows uneasy as he realizes that Turan may be from the great House of Zahar, a family known for hunters and pursuers. This is the same house that Kyorn once fought against, the one that took everything from him. Turan is shocked after learning all this and begins to wonder what he should do, even though those actions were committed by relatives he has never met. Seeing the worry on Turan's face, Kyorn comforts him and says that he did not take part in that war, so there is no reason for him to feel responsible. Turan then asks if Kyorn regrets telling him to leave the mountain. Kyorn replies that he understands if Turan goes out into the world and seeks power, he may eventually join the Zahar family. Even so, Kyorn trusts Turan's character, because Turan saved his life. He believes that if someone like Turan rises to a high position within the Zahar family, it could help prevent such a terrible war from happening again. Still, Kyorn does not want to think too deeply about it, since nothing has been decided yet. Hearing this, Turan decides that he will leave the mountain, but only after Kyorn's injuries have fully healed. This once again earns Kyorn's praise. After things settle down, they return to Turan's house. There, Kyorn explains that mana is often called the key to limitless power, as it is essential for all magic. To use magic, a person must have the right amount and type of mana. He then explains that the difficulty of magic depends on three main factors. The first is bloodline, which is determined by the noble family a person is born into. Each bloodline has its own strengths. For example, nobles from the Ravista bloodline in the south can heal others with ease, while for someone like Turan, it would be very difficult. The second is affinity, which means that a mage can perform better with actions they are familiar with or prefer. This is why Turan was able to create a fireball as naturally as throwing a stone. The third is causality, which is very important, though even Kyorn admits he does not fully understand it. To explain it, Kyorn asks Turan a difficult question. What would happen if he tried to kill Kyorn directly using mana? With his limited knowledge, Turan guesses that there might be a small flash of light and nothing more. Kiorn confirms that this is exactly what happens when there is no proper cause. When there is no clear path to achieve an outcome, or when the task is too difficult, the magic fails. With this explanation, Turan begins to understand causality better. Instead of simply wishing for someone's death, he would need to create a proper cause, such as forming and launching flames. This feels more natural and effective. Hearing this, Kiorn feels proud of Turan and even jokes that he should become a scholar instead of a mage. Ignoring that suggestion, Turan brings up another question. He can control normal animals easily, so why do magical beasts require proper causality? Kiorn explains that it is because of their mana. After that, they continue discussing magic, and Turan comments that it is not as easy as it seems. Curious, Turan asks about the special ability of the Zahar bloodline. Kiorn explains that they are known for stealth and tracking, and he suggests that Turan try it. Turan decides to test it immediately. He closes his eyes and focuses, imagining that no one can see him. In the next moment, Turan completely disappears. Kiorn cannot see or sense him at all. Seeing this ability makes Kiorn feel uneasy, as it reminds him of the war. This was the very skill that the Arbian knights feared the most. Still, Kiorn reminds Turan that even such a powerful ability is not unbeatable. After this, Kiorn begins teaching Turan some basic methods for training magic. Turan asks if it is really alright for him to teach so much to someone who might belong to an enemy family. Kiorn replies that it does not matter. Turan saved his life, and more importantly, he trusts him. Eventually, Kiorn's injuries fully heal. Turan then decides to sell his sheep to the village chief at a good price before leaving. The chief worries about who will take care of the sheep after Turan leaves, but Turan does not concern himself with that. He only wants a fair price, and even threatens to release the sheep if he is not paid properly. Knowing that Turan keeps his word, the chief agrees and pays him. After receiving the money, Turan leaves with Kiorn. As they walk, Turan remembers that the chief never paid Kiorn for defeating the monster. However, Kiorn says he never expected any reward, and that it was actually Turan who defeated the creature. When they reach the edge of town, they prepare to part ways. Kiorn refuses Turan's offer to travel together. Turan is not upset, and instead thanks Kiorn for everything he has taught him. They say their goodbyes, both hoping to meet again one day with smiles on their faces. Turan watches Kiorn walk away for a long time. At that moment, he realizes why he never felt comfortable speaking to Kiorn in a formal way. Even though he always received love from his mother, he had secretly longed for a father figure, someone he could look up to and learn from as he grew. After traveling alone for some time, Turan comes across a group of people moving from village to village. Believing them to be merchants, he approaches them to ask for directions. He asks about the nearest city, and an older man tells him to follow their route, which leads to a place called Muriai. Turan begins walking in that direction, but one of the men suddenly stops him. At that moment, Turan realizes that they are not merchants, but bandits. They surround him and threaten him, demanding that he hand over everything he has so that no one will notice anything. Turan remembers what Kiorn told him about bandits. Instead of panicking, he decides to use this as an opportunity to practice his magic on them. Hearing this, the bandits burst into laughter. They mock Turan, thinking he is only pretending to be a mage. What they do not know is that he is actually a real mage. Turan uses wind magic, but this time it is different. He controls a small amount of mana to create a strong gust of wind. After that, he pulls water from a bottle and uses it like bullets to attack the bandits. Realizing that Turan is a mage, the bandit leader begs for his life. He claims they did not know who Turan was. However, this is only a trick to distract him so the others can attack. Turan is not foolish enough to fall for it. He uses earth magic and defeats the 4 bandits without hesitation. Now only the leader remains. Turan walks up to him and asks why they attacked without a proper plan, even though there was a chance he could be a mage. The leader explains that Turan bowed his head even when they spoke to him rudely, so they assumed he was just an ordinary person. After hearing this, Turan understands more about how mages are treated. He thanks the leader, which makes the man think he will be spared. However, Turan still defeats him, remembering Kiorn's warning. Kiorn had told him never to show mercy to bandits, as they harm others for their own gain. Sparing one person out of pity could lead to harm for many innocent people. After the fight, Turan follows the path left by the bandit's cart. The clear wheel marks in the sand remind him of what he has just done. He feels uneasy. Still, he knows he could not let them go. Kiorn's words echo in his mind. Turan's troubled thoughts begin to settle as he recalls what he was taught. Soon, he arrives at a small city called Murai. As he enters, he feels overwhelmed by how crowded it is. The buildings and streets look very different from his village. While walking through the market, he stops at a shop to ask for directions to an inn. The shopkeeper becomes annoyed because Turan is not buying anything. To avoid trouble, Turan buys some fruit and asks again. This time, the shopkeeper politely gives him directions to the largest inn in the city. When Turan arrives at the inn, a staff member named Rina greets him warmly. Without wasting time, Turan asks the price for one night. He simply means the room, and Rina tells him the cost. Turan agrees and pays without hesitation. He then asks if there are any nearby monsters with a bounty on them. He needs to hunt monsters to earn money and grow stronger. At first, Rina does not answer, so Turan realizes that she expects payment for the information. After he pays, she tells him about the city hall, where such matters are handled, and suggests that he visit there the next day. Rina then asks if Turan is a monster hunter. Since he is not familiar with the term, she explains that some people believe an ordinary person can become a mage by hunting monsters. She dismisses this idea as foolish. At that moment, a monster hunter named Midden arrives and places his hand on Turan's shoulder, confirming that there may be some truth to the rumor. Turan calmly asks him to remove his hand, then asks him to explain further. Midden says that mages grow stronger by hunting monsters, so by the same idea, ordinary people may also gain power this way. He explains that he is hunting monsters with 3 companions. When Turan asks if any of them are mages, Midden admits that none of them are, and that there are only 4 mages in the entire city. Midden then asks if Turan has any weapons. Turan shows him his sling. Midden looks at it and says that it would only be useful for hunting small animals. He then invites Turan to join their group, but Turan politely refuses. Later, Turan rests in his room, thinking about how he has truly left his village behind. As he reflects on his mana and his future, at that moment, Turan overhears Midden's teammates asking him why he tried to recruit Turan when he did not seem very useful. Midden replies that Turan reminds him of himself when he was younger. Seeing someone hunt with such a simple weapon made him worry. That is why he wanted Turan to join them, so he could at least survive longer. Hearing this softens Turan's thoughts, and he begins to feel that not everyone in the city is cold-hearted. The next day, Turan goes to the city hall and tells the official that he wants to hunt monsters. He remembers Kiorn's advice that the world will not be kind without a reason. If he wants people to treat him differently, he could reveal that he is a mage. For now, Turan decides to keep that hidden. He takes a request paper for a monster while the official rudely tells him to return it after reading. The official also instructs Turan to bring back the monster's body after defeating it, because mages must clear the remaining mana. If a body is left behind, it can turn into a wraith. According to the city's law, leaving it could lead to severe punishment. Turan understands the danger and knows he cannot repeat the same mistake. When Turan asks further, the official explains that the knights are busy maintaining order inside the city, so hunting monsters outside is left to people like him. Turan leaves, while the official assumes he will not survive, just like many others who tried. However, everyone is shocked when Turan returns carrying the monster's body in perfect condition. He says he defeated it alone and asks for his reward. An official quickly brings the bounty and hands it to him, suggesting he take some rest. As they begin examining the monster, they notice Turan is still there. He tells them he wants to continue hunting more monsters. Back at the inn, Rina serves Turan a large amount of expensive food. She has heard that he defeated more than 30 monsters in just 3 days. She assumes he must have earned a lot of money, but Turan explains that money is not his main goal. What he really wants is the mana from the monsters. Because of this, Turan has grown much stronger compared to when he first met Kiorn. However, he also realizes that defeating weak monsters is no longer enough to improve further. After finishing his meal, Turan stands up, but one of Midden's companions suddenly grabs him from behind and demands money. A fight breaks out, but Turan easily avoids their attacks and defeats them without much effort. Rina quickly steps in and shouts at them to stop fighting inside the inn. The scene then shifts to the hallway, where Midden bows his head and apologizes for his friend's actions. He explains that they are running out of money, and they may not even be able to pay for their rooms in a few days. He believes his friends became jealous of Turan's success. Midden makes them apologize as well. Even though it is not his problem, Turan offers them money. He says it is a way to repay Midden's earlier kindness, when he showed concern and tried to help him. Midden is surprised that Turan knows about this. Since he would normally refuse, Turan instead says he wants information in return. This makes Midden accept the offer and agree to share what he knows. Later, Turan prepares for one last hunt before leaving for another city. Midden provides more useful information than expected, proving that he is a good person. Although he is not as experienced as Kjorn, Turan feels that this makes him more honest and kind. While exploring the forest, Turan suddenly hears a loud noise, and he follows the sound. He soon discovers that all of Midden's group have been killed. While searching for clues, Turan notices that one of the men is still alive, though barely. With his final strength, the man tells Turan that they were attacked by a rabbit monster. At that moment, Turan spots the creature standing nearby, and it immediately charges at him. Turan barely manages to dodge the monster's fast attack. However, he does not plan to retreat. He begins swinging his sling and launches an attack, but the rabbit monster easily avoids it. Turan quickly realizes that the creature is used to defending against thrown weapons. Because of this, Turan decides to act as if he is completely defenseless. The rabbit monster takes the bait and rushes toward him. At that exact moment, Turan moves behind it and strikes. He then quickly creates some distance and uses his stealth ability to hide his presence. The monster refuses to fall for the same trick again. It begins attacking the trees and roaring, trying to find Turan. No matter what it does, it cannot sense him. Then, in a sudden move, Turan appears and launches another attack, finally defeating the monster. After the fight, Turan absorbs the monster's mana. He notices that the amount is much greater than what he gained from the leopard monster he faced before. The injured man is shocked to learn that Turan is a mage. Ignoring that, Turan gently asks if they have any family he can return their belongings to. The man replies that they have no family. Earlier, while sharing information, Midden had told Turan about a great city called Orem. It has a large library filled with thousands of books, but only mages are allowed to enter. Back in the present, Turan buries the three men and decides to head toward Orem. He leaves at once. When he finally reaches the city, he feels overwhelmed. He remembers being surprised by the size of Muriai, but Orem is far larger than he expected. There is even a long line of people waiting just to enter. When it is finally his turn, the guard refuses to let him in because of his dirty clothes. Turan cleans himself up and is then allowed to enter the city. He makes his way to the library that Midden mentioned and speaks to the guards, expressing his wish to enter. However, they stop him, saying that only mages are allowed inside. Turan calmly says that he is a mage. The guard becomes upset, thinking Turan is lying. He raises his hand and uses mana to check. Turan remembers Kjorn's words that mages can recognize each other by sensing mana and can even judge each other's strength. As the guard checks, he is overwhelmed by Turan's power and falls to the ground. He quickly realizes that Turan is not an ordinary mage, but someone of noble level or higher. His attitude changes at once, and he introduces himself as Kenya, a knight of House Voltas. Kenya asks which house Turan belongs to, but Turan refuses to answer and instead asks if he may enter the library. Kenya explains that he still cannot allow entry without permission from the master of House Voltas. He sends word to inform his master. Soon after, Turan is taken in and attended by the household staff. After bathing and changing into clean clothes, his appearance changes greatly. One of the maids accidentally praises his looks out loud, then quickly apologizes, feeling embarrassed. While they are speaking, another girl enters and teasingly asks if he is the same person who arrived looking unkempt. Even she is surprised by his appearance and admits that he now looks like a prince. They introduce themselves, and the girl reveals that her name is Azella, the daughter of the master of Voltas. She asks about Turan's background, but he once again refuses to answer. This only makes her more curious. With a playful smile, she releases a strong wave of her mana, hoping to make Turan reveal his own power in response. Turan refuses to back down from the pressure and releases his own mana. Everyone present feels a powerful presence. However, Turan quickly stops. Azella is amazed, as his pressure is strong enough to make her hand tremble. Impressed, Azella suddenly suggests that Turan should marry her. This leaves Turan shocked and confused. Seeing his reaction, Azella laughs and says she was only joking. Before leaving, she tells him to at least think about it once, as the place beside her is still open. After she leaves, Turan notices that even his own hands are trembling. This makes him realize that her mana is equal to his, and he begins to wonder if that is normal. Later, Turan goes to meet the master of Aurum, Rug, and introduces himself. Rug already knows that Turan wants to enter the library, but he first wants to clear up some rumors. He explains that there is no hidden ancient magic in the library, and no secret method to increase one's mana. Turan calmly replies that he never came for such things. Hearing this, Rug agrees not to stop him and tells him to rest for the day and come back tomorrow. The next day, Turan enters the library and is amazed by its size and the number of books inside. A librarian, who looks like a young child, greets him and explains the rules. First, if he damages anything, he must pay for it. Second, he cannot take any books outside. Third, she will be watching him the entire time. Turan agrees to all the rules. While looking around, Turan asks if she also reads the books. She replies that her job is to find whatever he needs. She asks if he prefers romance or history. Turan politely declines and says he wants to learn the basic knowledge of the world. Although surprised, she gathers several old books for him. This is Turan's first time seeing a book, and he is amazed as soon as he opens one. From that day on, Turan spends his time reading in the library. He learns about the world's geography, different races, the manners of mages, how items are made, and information about monsters and relics from the old empire. With each new piece of knowledge, the world becomes clearer and more meaningful to him. After a few days, Turan is called to meet Rug again. Rug explains that allowing him to use the library was an act of goodwill, and now he expects something in return. Turan asks what he needs, and Rug explains that a dangerous monster has been attacking travelers for several days. Even 4 knights sent to defeat it were unsuccessful. Because of this, a noble must take action. However, the House of Voltas can only send 2 people. Turan agrees to help, as he believes it is the duty of a mage. Still, he feels something is unusual, since mages do not usually involve themselves in such matters. Rug then reveals that the road being blocked is an important trade route for Aurum. This helps Turan understand why he was allowed access to the library. Soon after, Turan leaves the city with the nobles and some knights to hunt the monster. Among them is Azella, who complains about involving their guest in such a task. She tells Turan that she is not blaming him, but feels her father is making too much of the situation. A black-haired noble becomes upset by her words, though he controls himself. He then greets Turan and introduces himself as Marvin Voltas, Azella's brother. Noticing Turan looking at Azella, Marvin asks if he is interested in her. Turan quickly denies it, which makes Marvin feel relieved. Before long, they come across a broken carriage that was attacked by the monster. Turan carefully studies it and concludes that the damage was likely caused by a creature similar to a monkey. He explains that the monster attacked the travelers and returned to the forest, so following its trail may lead them to it. However, this creates a problem for Marvin and Azella, as they cannot track it in this way. Turan decides to handle it himself. To avoid revealing too much about his abilities, he claims that he has simply practiced this skill often. Turan smells a piece of cloth and begins tracking the scent. They follow the trail until they reach a waterway, where it seems the monster tried to hide its tracks. Suddenly, Turan senses the creature behind them. The monster had been hiding nearby and attacks by throwing stones. The knights are unable to react in time and are defeated. Turan quickly avoids the attack, while Azella uses the knights to shield herself. Seeing this, Turan begins to understand that his mother's warnings may have been true. Azella orders the remaining knights to chase the monster as it runs away. While they pursue it, Turan stays back, swings his sling, and strikes the monster from a distance. Everyone is shocked and turns around, realizing that it was Turan who landed the attack. Turan's attack stops the monster's movement, and seeing this opportunity, Azella uses her bloodline ability to defeat it. This is the first time Turan witnesses the power of House Voltas and their fire-based abilities. After the monster is defeated, the knights feel relieved. Turan walks toward them as Azella comments that she felt a chill for a moment when the rock was flying toward them. Hearing this, Marvin asks if she was scared, but she quickly denies it and says that he was the one who reacted loudly. The knights who were attacked earlier are badly injured, but they all survive. Seeing Turan's expression, Marvin asks if something is wrong, but Turan chooses not to explain. After that, the three of them begin absorbing the monster's mana. As he does so, Turan realizes that what he read in the books is true. Even if several people absorb mana at the same time, the amount each person gains does not decrease. After a short while, Azella and Marvin reach their limits and can no longer absorb any more mana. Turan, however, continues absorbing it without any issue. This makes Azella understand why their father sent him with them. Even though his mana feels equal to hers, Turan has not yet reached his limit. They return to the mansion with the injured knights. There, Marvin says that they were only able to find and defeat the monster because of Turan's skill. Even though this is true, Turan stays humble and says that he regrets not realizing earlier that the monster also had tracking abilities. It seems that different abilities appear depending on a monster's traits. The creature they defeated looked like a monkey, but it was different from a normal one. Turan believes this is why it could throw objects with great force and see over long distances or through the forest. Hearing this, Marvin praises Turan's reasoning. Turan replies that it is all thanks to what he learned from the books in the library. When Azella and Marvin hear this, they show little interest and admit that the books there are too difficult for them, so they avoid reading them. Turan suggests that they ask the librarian for easier books. This confuses both of them, as they claim there is no librarian. Realizing something is strange, Turan goes straight to the library. He begins to think that he may have misunderstood the situation. It is unlikely that someone would speak so casually with a noble, and her appearance did not fully match that of a normal librarian. He asks her how she knows his name. She smiles and asks if he has only just noticed. She explains that she saw his name on his permit, and as long as he is inside the library, she can see everything. Turan then asks how he should address her. She replies that she does not have a specific name, so he may call her anything he likes. They continue talking, and she points out how Turan used to speak to her casually before, but is now acting more polite. Turan still believes she might be a mage from the old empire, but she corrects him. She explains that she is not a person, but a spirit. In fact, the library itself is her true form. She only takes this shape to make communication easier, and her appearance can change depending on the preference of the person she is speaking with. Turan becomes curious and tries to study her form. He even reaches out to touch her, but his hand passes straight through. She complains that it feels unpleasant not being able to directly act on intruders. If she had that ability, she says she would have punished anyone who tried to take books out of the library carelessly. Turan then points out that even the House of Voltas does not seem to know about her existence. She replies that the reason is simple. Until now, no one had the ability to perceive her. A person needs a certain quality to see her, and at this moment, only Turan has that ability. When she explains that this quality is connected to bloodlines, Turan becomes very interested and asks her to tell him more. She first tells him to ask his parents, but Turan reveals that he is an orphan. Hearing this, she decides to examine him herself. To do that, she needs to check his body. This makes Turan a little nervous. She finds traces of the bloodline of House Sahar, but also traces of another unknown bloodline. This means that Turan is a mix of two different bloodlines. Turan asks about the second bloodline, but she says she cannot fully identify it because it is still sealed. It will likely reveal itself as Turan grows stronger. Hearing this, Turan realizes that his mother may not have been a commoner, and there is a chance she came from a noble background. Turan bows respectfully and thanks her for the information. She then asks him to stay for one more month if he is truly grateful. After learning that she is a spirit, Turan no longer studies alone. He often asks her questions about the books and requests explanations. She even knows the contents of books that were lost or taken from the library long ago. She teaches him the laws of nature in simple terms, which becomes a great source of knowledge for him. He learns about tiny living organisms and understands that decay happens because of them. He also learns basic principles such as how light bends and many other ideas. Turan even begins testing some of these concepts himself and succeeds in his experiments. This new knowledge changes the way he sees the world and improves his abilities as a mage. He also starts to think that some noble houses may try to control knowledge like this to prevent others from reaching the same level. In time, Turan realizes that he must leave the library. The master of the place, Rug, has been giving hints that it is time for him to go. Although the spirit wishes for him to stay longer, she cannot leave the library, and Turan cannot remain there forever. Before leaving, she asks him to return whenever he can and continue reading with her. Turan promises that he will come back, as there are still many books he has not yet read. After packing his belongings, Turan decides to head to his next destination, Zahar, in hopes of finding clues about his parents.